A lot of times I get comments from people saying that I sound like this person or that other person, or that I'm saying the same things that this person or that other person is saying, right? And they say this in an accusatory way, which I find very amusing, right? As if I'm stealing from these other people, which is absurd, of course, because I'm not stealing from anybody else. Of course not. What's going on is that those other people who make videos and whatnot, they have arrived at the same conclusions that I have. Because see, the truth doesn't change. The only thing that changes about the truth is the packaging, yeah? See, I can say, for instance, that 2 + 2 is 4, right? And I say it in one way. I say 2 and 2, it's 4, see? And that's the packaging that I'm using to present that particular truth. But somebody else, you yourself, for instance, can say it in a completely different way that pretty much expresses the same truth. Yeah? Because see, truth is objective. Truth is immutable. And what we are trying to achieve is to find these truths, these hard nuggets of gold out there. Okay? Now these hard nuggets of gold, well, yeah, they have like mixtures of impurities and errors. Okay, that's the point of it. And these errors, sometimes we think that those errors are true, and it takes a while to figure out what's the real gold and what's just, the chaff, right? Forgive me for mixing my metaphors so badly, but I think that you know what I'm talking about. The truth is objective, and different people express the truth differently. But the truth never changes. Now, the reason that some people accuse me of ripping off other commentators, right, or perhaps accuse those other commentators of ripping me off, which they haven't, I'm positive of it, is because in the last, I'd say 2-3 generations, the Zoomers, the Millennials, and a lot of the Gen Xers, we were all raised up to believe that truth is subjective. And it's not, okay? That's a lie. Truth is objective. And it's very clear that there are some things that are absolutely true and some things that are absolutely false. And there's no question that you can look at truth situationally, relativistically, that from one point of view, truth looks one way, and from another point of view, it looks different. But it doesn't change the fact that the truth is always the same. And yet, over the last 3 generations, people have been taught to believe that truth is relative. And therefore, if truth is relative, they assume that whoever is speaking the truth, or let me phrase that, that whoever is saying something, they own that thing, whatever it may be, that they own that truth. And the other person owns a different truth. And if they are the same truth, then one is stealing from the other, which is, of course, crazy. Yeah, if I sound like some other guy sounds like me, I do not believe that he is stealing from me, and he should not believe that I'm stealing from him. Because first of all these people that I get compared to, I've never watched their shit, okay? Some of them I get referred to constantly, and I deliberately go out of my way not to read their books or watch their videos, precisely so I don't unconsciously pick up some expression that they might use or some concept that they have, because I don't want people to think that I'm ripping somebody else off. I'm just giving my own experience from what I have actually seen, okay? And that's the point of these videos. But to go back to the problem here, see, truth is not relative. Different people do not have different truths, plural. No, there are no such things as different truths. There is one truth, and potentially different points of view on that truth. And so you got to recognize what's the difference between a point of view on the truth and what is actually true. Because it's certainly the case that many times when you're standing in a certain position, you can see some action as quote-unquote evil, for instance. Let's talk about it in a moral sense, moral epistemology. Let's get really nasty and messy about it, sure. So anyway, you can say that somebody's doing something that looks quote-unquote evil, but perhaps from their point of view, it's morally perfectly good. And it's the same action. It's the same action. The action is objectively the same all around. But from a moral point of view, it's different. One person thinks that it's good and the other person thinks that it's bad. Okay? And this happens all the time. But it doesn't change the fact of what's going on. The facts, the actions, they are objective. A moral determination will be subjective, certainly. Will be relative, certainly. Yeah. But what's actually going on, it's objective. And this, of course, applies to human behavior, see? Because human behavior, we can analyze it from different moral perspectives, different moral points of view. You know, we can say that the same dynamic that's going on, the human dynamic that's going on, we can say that, oh, it's a good thing, or we can say that, oh, no, it's a bad thing, but it's the same fucking thing. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so you have to recognize what's going on. There are two issues going on. There's the epistemic issue, that is the truth value of an action or a situation or a piece of information, right? That's one thing. And on the other hand is whether that is good or not. And that can be very different. Yeah, because morality, that sure as shit is relativistic. Yeah, that certainly changes from where you're standing, your point of view. Yeah? And so a lot of times people confuse that. They confuse that because people say that something is bad and other people say that that same thing is very good. And so there are a lot of guys on the manosphere who are basically saying the same thing, that X is good. Even though the SJWs and the mainstream media and the mainstream culture is saying that it's bad, we're saying, no. This thing is good. And we're all saying it. And so it might sound like, somebody's ripping somebody off, or somebody's, lifting somebody else's inside or what have you. No, it has nothing to do with that. See, the inside is the same. And it's basically an issue of moral stance. See, that those people over there, those people on the mainstream media, those people, who are just trying to curry favor with the establishment class, they say that one thing is bad, that you are bad, that we men are bad by definition. And we in the manosphere are saying, no, we're good. We're perfectly fine and decent, okay? And even better than perfectly fine and decent, we're fucking A. We're wonderful. We're fantastic. We are, aces, right? And that's what we're all saying. And just because we're all saying it doesn't mean that, number one, we're ripping each other off, and number two, it's not an objective fact. So if I sound like somebody else, you should actually be relieved. See, when you look at different people who express the same thing, and they come at it from different directions, but they more or less come to the same conclusions, then you're going to probably think to yourself, yeah, that's pretty much accurate. Like the 2 + 2 example. You can come at the 2 + 2 case from all kinds of angles, right? And it will always result in the same thing, 4. 2 + 2 is 4. And no matter how you gussy it up or how you minimalize it and try to make it as clear as possible or as filled with extra curly cues as possible, the basic fact always remains, okay? And that's the thing about truth. It's always the same. And see, that's the beauty of poetry, see? It's always the same, the truth that great poetry tells us. But see, it's packaged differently every time, packaged through the lens of the individual author. You read the poems of John Keats, for instance, and they're totally different from the plays of William Shakespeare, right? But the truths being expressed are the same, often as not, and you'd be surprised, right? You read the poetry of Keats, and you read certain lines, and you say, this is the same thing that Shakespeare said in whatever, in Macbeth or whatnot, right? And what, you think that Keats was ripping off a line from Shakespeare? No, he was saying the same thing, the same truth. The truth doesn't change. It's just the packaging. And you listen to me and I sound like some other guy. It's that the truth that we're both saying, it is the truth. And he's just putting it through his relativistic lens of his point of view, and I'm doing it through my own. His own style, my own style. But the truth doesn't change. And that's the valuable thing. When you're not sure if I'm saying something true or not, when you're not sure if somebody else is saying something that's true or not, compare them. Compare them. Ask yourself, what does this other person say about what CRP said? What does this other guy say about what the other man said? Compare and contrast, see? Because, see, this is something that has to be understood and that you should understand clearly. And the point of this video, that I've gone in a very roundabout way, but the truth doesn't change, right? It doesn't. And therefore, if the truth never changes, you can examine something you believe to be true 1,000 times. And if it is true, it's not going to change. Huh? And if it's false, then you discard it and go hunting for the truth that is actually true. You see my point? You should never be afraid of examining what somebody says, what somebody tells you is the truth. What I say is the truth, what anybody says is the truth. You should never be afraid of examining it. You should never get defensive when somebody attacks. For instance, there are guys, and I'm grateful, there are fans of mine who get defensive when other people attack me, and I think it's funny, yeah? Because see, if I'm wrong, then it'll be a good thing to discover that I'm wrong. It'll be a good thing for me, because if I'm wrong about something and somebody shows me that I'm wrong, then I'll discard the old idea that I thought was correct and turned out to be false, and I will pick up this new bit of information that actually is true, and I'm going to run with it, yeah? And if somebody attacks me and says that what I'm saying is not true, and yet they keep on attacking me, but they do not prove that what I believe is not true, i.e. they cannot prove that it's false, well then, I have nothing to worry about. You see? Never be afraid to question what you believe to be true. Always be willing to question it. Always be willing to test it, because only good things will come from it. Either you will confirm that what you believe is absolutely true, or you will discover that it is false, and thereby discover what actually is true.